Welcome to this week's Ancient Amnesia Podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back to Ancient Amnesia Podcast. I'm Josh. This is Dave. I wanted to just kind of talk about a really cool article that we had posted recently that just kind of fun. Not really, not for the kid, right? Right, Dave?
Yeah, it probably wasn't a really interesting experience for him.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny. It's funny because there's people need to realize I always like to put myself back in these situations. And really, you know, people back in 115,000 years ago, these Neanderthals, these early hominids, these guys were in a very dangerous world. And we had, you know, these massive mammals. They're probably the scariest. I mean, they're just as scary as dinosaurs, and some of them even scarier. I mean, you know, when birds can be dangerous, you know, and gigantic other creatures that are roaming around, it's just unbelievable what they had to go through. And I think that this is part of why we became so intelligent, you know, because we had to be tested among some very intelligent animals. I mean, high order apex predators, especially mammals today, you know, they're very smart. And if you go out there and you go in their environment, you know, you're going to be eaten pretty fast if you don't know what the hell's going on.
Oh yeah.
And so, and this probably happened, you know, all the time, you know. But apparently these researchers found that it looked like this Neanderthal child went through the digestive system of an enormous kind of dodo-ish looking bird. And so...
And this was in Poland, right?
Yeah, researchers in Poland came across a pair of Neanderthal bones that held a grisly secret. Their owner had been eaten by a giant bird. And so 2 finger bones belonged to a Neanderthal child who had died roughly 115,000 years ago, making the bones the oldest known human remains from Poland. Once the bones were analyzed, the scientists concluded that the hand bones were porous because they had passed through the digestive system of a large bird. Hey, look, that's smart. That's interesting. It's unclear if the bird killed the child and then ate him, or if the animal simply scavenged on the child's already dead body, but they said that neither option could be ruled out. No matter what happened, these bones are a remarkable discovery. The researchers said that this is the first known example from the Ice Age of bones passing through a bird's digestive system. So that's pretty awesome. I mean, this is where they're finding it, excavation, that
so
cave.
They're basically finding some really interesting shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me that these guys could not just find a little bone, little finger bone, but they can tell that it actually went through the butt of an ancient bird, right? Like that it went through the digestive system, it got crapped out. And that's what's fascinating, is that they can tell so much about bones, that they can pick up something. They can tell the age, they can tell the gender, they can tell all kinds of things. And so, you know, I thought what was interesting about this is just the general environment that these people were living in, and what they had to deal with on a daily basis. You know, it's kind of interesting to think about. You know, I think the Ice Age is a really fascinating period. It's where we got our chops, really. You know, it's where we developed, and it's where we had to compete. And so that was basically our breeding ground. It was where we finally came to be what we are. And then boom, we got hit by something big, and then it almost got like a reboot. And then we're trying to pick up the pieces today, and that's ultimately what Ancient Amnesia is just picking up those pieces from that period. And so it's good for us to go back further, right? Like 100,000 years ago, and 50,000 years ago, and 40,000 years ago, because that's the darkest part, you know, of our memory.
People were running, man. They were running for their lives. You can bet your ass. I mean, you look at, you know, you had mastodons. You know, I mean, sure, you could go hunt a mastodon, but you stand a chance of being trampled by it, or, you know, another one coming out, and you know, I mean, just the food you hunted could kill you. You know. And then while you're out hunting food, you're obviously food, you know, for anything else that's out there bigger than you or hungry. You know, you could have your spear and you could be waiting on something to come by, and then one of these giant birds could come by and just like bite your head right off, you know, and you're done, you know. And I'm sure these people were fairly skinny. You know, they weren't like robust, big, sturdy, muscular people. You know, they were very thin. So, you know, they probably were 150 to 170 pounds at the most. So, you know, a bird that's 300 or 400 pounds is going to be a hell of a foe. You know, I mean, he's going to pretty much, him and a couple of his friends are going to turn you into dinner no matter what, you know. And if this guy or this kid was already dead, then you see behavior kind of like vultures, you know. So they're kind of an opportunistic creature that comes along and eats whatever is just freshly died. So that would tell you that, you know, the kid either had died on a trek and they just left him, or they had, put him out into the wild and buried him or done whatever. Maybe he was being excarnated and they hadn't lit him on fire yet or some treatment like that. But the fact that it was actually digested, tells you it's not just being found, in an area where the bird bones were being found. It's actually been eaten by the bird, and that's kind of a creepy thought to think that, when you're a kid that age, this gigantic bird, that's the most horrific thing and that you could ever imagine, these things you see running around on the plane for the first few years of your life. And then there's one day and he's just going to, make mincemeat out of you. That's
one of the things that I think that people realize when they grow up is like, wow, we're kind of like, we're soft, like it's easy for us to die. But what I'm saying is that we really had to use intelligence in order to overcome and master the elements and the other creatures. So, this is kind of the period where we're doing that, and we had to be smarter. And animals are really intelligent, and we don't give them credit for it because we live in these little glass boxes, and we're all
we have a lot of experience.
But these people had didn't have modern tech. These guys were throwing wooden spears and things like that, and they had to survive all this stuff. Pretty fascinating. So I just wanted to kind of like show people that was kind of it was really unique. It's a groundbreaking discovery. It was overlooked.
And it says 300,000 years. So, that's really cool to see that they're acknowledging back a little farther, not trying to, pigeonhole, the time frame, as far as, Neanderthals are, here and there. I think there was a lot of overlapping time with humans and Neanderthals that, they may not give credence to, but I would say they were the ones that were probably being chased around, and the humans, when we came around, were probably the ones who were, sort of building little towns and fortifying our caves and having our family around, so we're more protected. And the Neanderthals are probably just a little less likely to handle that, situation and be more nomadic, and that meant they were out there, being part of the food chain. Yeah,
well, we could have come from an off branch of these people. Look at this. 300,000 years to 300,000 years is longer than modern humans have been around, right? So we know that 200,000. So these guys are a longer species. They have a larger history. So the entire history of modern humans is 100,000 years less than what we know of these. So just put that in perspective. So they were dominant on the planet for longer than we were. They had large brain capacities. Their head cranial capacities were actually larger than ours today. So it's a question of whether we got more efficient, like we do today with computers, where things get smaller but more efficient. Maybe nature is doing that. But definitely, we also were around at these crossovers. it says 300,000 years to 35,000. Well, for 200,000 years, we lived together, and so we were commingling, interbreeding. We were sharing, and they probably had a lot to teach us. So these could be the grandpas of our species. Like teaching us what they learned.
Yeah, they could. They might be actually the ones that brought the ability to deal with the environment. More, the ability to deal with, sudden changes in climate and, being nomads. They would know how, when they got to a certain place, how to establish a town or a village or an area where everybody could congregate really quickly and find food really quickly. So, when humans came around, if humans were maybe not so suited to a lot of that stuff, I'm sure they lived in harmony. I'm sure they each had their part, just like we do now. You have certain races and cultures now that are better at certain things, and back then I'm sure it was really no different.
Absolutely.
And like you said, the level of intelligence based on the size of the brain, of course, it could have been a lot of water up in there, or just for whatever, it just might have been a different
system,
less dense or whatever. But I think even a brain that's the size of a fist is more than enough than a human needs, to, go through its daily life and do whatever it has to do. So all that extra stuff would really not be a big deal. It would be irrelevant, in the long run.
Right. Well, guys, hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure if you have a parrot, say, be nice to it. Make sure it doesn't kill you in your sleep.
And if it doesn't fly and walks on 2 feet, you definitely want to call the Smithsonian.
Yeah, right. Maybe they don't feel so bad that we killed off the dodos.
Yeah. They were
So,
called a dodo for a reason. They were a really, really dumb bird.
yeah, the dodo had to go, right? So
We had to make room for what are those other birds now that we have? The seagulls. We had to make room for seagulls.
right. Cue in the Alfred Hitchcock and freak yourself out. Birds are coming.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but
we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks.
cheers.